5 years to all of the times she'd wished she could go back to that moment and exchange her life for the one that was taken. But she couldn't. She could not change the past. Not then, and not now. The tires slid, the cliff loomed, the dark abyss drew closer. Eve grabbed the steering wheel. Her hands were sweating. She latched on and jerked sharply to the right. The car veered away from the edge. She shoved Richard toward the driver's door. He was a small, wiry man, but inert. His body was heavy. She grunted, heaved again, and he struck the driver's door hard. His blonde head lolled against the window. He didn't protest her rough handling of him, not even a moan. Eve would have welcomed a moan. At the least, he was unconscious. At the most... She fought off her fears for Richard. If she didn't stop the car, his condition would cease to matter to both of them. She grappled with her seatbelt, releasing the catch, then slid onto the console and swung her leg over Richard's. She kicked his foot off the accelerator and stomped on the brake. The tires screeched as the car skidded, then went into a spin. The landscape of trees and rock face swirled by. Then Eve didn't know if the car was again at the edge about to go over. She couldn't determine up or down. She'd lost her bearings. She maintained her grip on the steering wheel and on the brake. The skin stretched taut over her knuckles. Her teeth gritted as she fought to ride out the spin and regain control of the car. The Porsche rocked to a stop. She was flung forward. Her instinctive grab of the dashboard twisted her wrist but saved her face. Laying her head on her arms, she closed her eyes and gave in to the weakness that had come over her now that the initial adrenaline rush was spent. Her ears were ringing. The car engine was off now, and in the silence she could hear herself breathing. Shallow, panting gasps for air that hurt to inhale and exhale. Other than those complaints, she felt fine. Alive. Richard. She turned to him and shook his shoulder. He didn't respond. She pressed her fingertips to his neck. Her hands were shaking so badly she wasn't sure she'd detect any other movement, but she felt a thready pulse. Eve tapped the back of her hand against his skin. "Richard?" He didn't respond. She struck him harder. His cheek reddened. She'd hit him hard enough to mark him, but apparently not enough to rouse him. "Hang on, Richard," she murmured. She turned the key, but the engine didn't start. Her purse. Where was her purse? She spotted the little envelope bag on the floorboard. She fumbled with the snap and yanked out her cell phone. She had to get help. Where were they? She glanced around the deserted stretch of road. A meadow lay beyond the 2 lanes of asphalt. Trees and scraggly bushes grew on the grass amid patches of white and yellow wildflowers. She and Richard had left Manhattan, bound for Roland, a county in Pennsylvania, about an hour ago. They were chemists, and they were on their way to a chemists' conference in Pittsburgh. Richard had kept to the back roads like this one to avoid traffic. Other than the sedan that was no longer in sight, she couldn't remember the last time they came across another car. None were in sight now. The sun was lowering behind a cluster of oaks. Nightfall was imminent. If this road was rarely traveled in daylight, what was the likelihood of another car coming along at night? With Richard in his present condition, they could not pass the night here. She pushed dark hair back from her face and flipped open the phone. An instant later, she found there was no signal. She hoped that was because she was inside the car. As she was about to go outside and try the phone again, the sedan that had been following them skidded to a halt behind the Porsche. Both the driver and passenger doors were flung open. 2 men charged out. One man was dark-haired, the other blonde. Both wore suits and ties. Eve wanted to be away from there. She knew nothing about the occupants of that car other than Richard had been terrified of them. But where to go? She was in the middle of nowhere.